the volume to produce the same size loaves of bread. Okay, it apparently didn't, the yeast didn't work on it, whatever.
And then Omar Rabbi Shmuel, is he also in Rabbi?
Everybody else says you have to give, you can give barley. I apologize. Rabbi Shmuel, who lived near Edom, he says our barley is lousy, so you have to double up. Okay. Then the Mishnah went on, and it gave a whole list of other foodstuffs, beans, different fruits, oil, etc. But it left out wine, which is a major component of diets in those days. So it just gives the heading. The nice kav kitnis. You give a half a kav of.
I just, good job, everybody. Good Erev Shabbos. So I just want to ask everybody, if you're eating in here, take a look around you before you leave, because we found crumbs on the floor and that kind of thing. So thanks very much, and have a good Shabbos.
Okay, so you have to give her a whole list of other foodstuffs, starting with half a cup of beans. The elu yayin lo katani, but the Mishnah leaves out wine. Messiah leila Rav Eliezer. This could be a support for the opinion of Rav Eliezer. To Omer Rav Eliezer, turn the page. Ein paskin yenus licha. We do not. In other words, the Mishnah left that out intentionally. We do not give women wine. Okay, and if you're going to tell me there's a pasuk that does say you give women wine, the im timer, achla acharei mahave naisnei lachli umayme meimai. And if you'll say there's a pasuk that says I follow my lovers who provide me with bread and water, the semre upishti with wool and linen, Shamni with oil, the shikui, and with potables. And the initial assumption that last word, drinkable material, means wine, because we already said water. If you want to say that, the Gemara makes a point. Dvorim shaha'isha mishtokekes aleihem. It doesn't mean wine. It means things that especially desire. Umanina is that tachshitin, and that is at various times in the Gemara translated as perfume, as jewelry, and as cosmetics. So the point is that here it's providing for a non-food need. It doesn't mean wine. So now, Doresh Reb Yehuda Ishkfar Nevi Raya. He comes from a town called Nevi Raya. V'amrei Ishkfar Nifor Chayil, or maybe he comes from Kfar Nifor Chayil. Minayin she'en paisikin yenos leisha. How do we know we don't give an allotment of wine to a woman in the circumstance where she's separated from her husband, sort of, but not totally? Shenemar, because we have the following pasuk referring to Chana. Now, in this pasuk, you'll pick up a diktuk problem. One of the words is masculine, even though we're talking about Chana and she's a lady. V'tokum Chana stood up, acharei achla b'Shilo, after she ate and together with her husband in Shiloh. The acharei shasai, and after she drank. Or he, literally, shaso is in the masculine, after he drank. So the Gemara picks up on that, and it says shaso v'lo shasas. that because of the change from feminine to masculine, the pasuk is going out of its way to tell us she drank, he drank, and she did not. Yeah.
But the Navi accused her of being.
That was later.
Yeah, but which means that women were expected to drink. Does that
we'll get there.
Okay.
The point here is that this pasuk sets up she bedafka did not drink, and yet it was nothing. It was the Kohen Gadol,
Right.
and he says she didn't. He in his own mind thought she was a bissel shicker, but the pasuk says she ate but did not drink. So elamiatza. So here, achla v'lo achal hachinami. So if you're going to make that diuk, does it mean he only drank because it says she ate and he drank? That's probably not so. Anan mikdashe anekra v'dibure ka'amrinan. Since the pasuk shifted from the feminine to the masculine, that's the point of what we're learning from the pasuk michti. Begavna koi asik v'shosei. The pasuk is really talking about her, and it says she didn't, that she ate it, and implies she didn't drink. My time, Shani, why did the pasuk change the gender in the pasuk? Shmamina shaso v'lo shoses. They both did eat, but Bedafka, she avoided drinking. He did drink wine. So Meisvei, now we're going to challenge that. And Bob, here's your point. Ragila shine. If Ragila, if a woman normally drinks wine with her meals, nasnan la, then her husband cannot deprive her. He must add wine to the list of things he gives. The Mishnah is trying to say you provide a woman in the manner to which she's accustomed. And if she's accustomed to drinking wine, you have to give her wine. Regila Shani, that's different. To Amar, Rav Chanina Bar Kahana Omer Shmuel, he says in the name of Shmuel, Ragila, if she normally drinks wine, Noisnin Lokais Echod, you provide her with 1 cup of wine, presumably per meal. Sha'eni Regila, but if she rarely or never drinks wine, Noisnin Lo Shnei Kaisos, you give her 2 cups of wine. That makes no sense whatsoever. So the Gemara doesn't use the words things are missing, but the Gemara is going to completely twist that and explain it totally differently. Mike Omar, what's the guy saying over here? Omar Abaya Hachikomer, here's what we're saying. Ragila, if the woman normally drinks wine, if Baila Shnei Kaisos, and her husband is present, she drinks 2 cups. We'll see why in a minute. Shalo b'fnei baila, but if her husband is not present, noisnin lo koisechod, we only give her to drink 1 cup. Okay? Ein a regila b'fnei baila ela koisechod. If remember now, this could be talking about the Friday night when her husband is present, even though they have a katata and they're living separately. Aina Regila, if she doesn't normally drink wine, Bifnei Baila Elakais Echad, you still give her 1 cup of wine when her husband is present. Shalo Bifnei Baila, if her husband is not present the other days of the week, Ain Noisnin Lo Kolikar, she gets no wine whatsoever. Okay? The Ipa, or another way of looking at an interpretation of that strange statement, Regila, if the woman normally drinks wine. I'm sorry, if the woman is of a status where she cooks with wine, okay? Ragila, if she normally cooks with wine, Noisninla, Litzike Kadera. We give her enough wine to handle her normal cooking style. Literally, we give her wine to flavor the pot. Okay. The Omer Rebbe Abuhu Omer Rebbe Yochanan. He says there, Rebbe Abu says name Rebbe Yochanan Maisa Bekalasa Shel Nakdiman Ben Gurion. The widowed, because the context is widow, so the widowed daughter-in-law of Nakdiman Ben Gurion, who was like the second richest man in Jerusalem. Okay. She went to Bezdin and she said, I need provisions from my late husband's estate. The Chachamim awarded her Sosayim Yayin Litzike Kedera, Me'erev Shabbos Le'erev Shabbos. They gave her an enormous amount of wine, 2 sa'a of wine per week, so she could use it in making beef bourguignon and the like. So she was not happy. She thought that was much too little. So lehen ben kach tifsiku libenoseichem. That's you guys should be wealthy enough that you provide that quantity of wine to your daughters when they're married for their cooking. Now, that might be thought of as a bracha because it's a large amount of wine. She's wishing them that they should be wealthy enough to do that. But the problem is she's a widow. So it's a double-edged sword. So Tana, we learn Shoimeres Yavam Hoisa. She was a widow and she had no children, and she was waiting for her brother-in-law to take her in Yibo she's a Yavama. So the rabbi's picking up that she's also saying your husbands should all die. They refused to say amen to what might have been thought of as a bracha. Another story. Tana Kaisechet Yafa Isha. 1 cup of wine is a good thing for a woman to have. Shnayen Nivulhu. But 2, she may act inappropriately. Okay, and this is we're going to learn when her husband's not around. Shloisha Tavas Pipeh. 3 cups of wine already. She flirts with her husband, and that's considered negative. She's then actually verbally telling him she's interested in Bia. Arba, when we give her 4 cups of wine, even Chomer Tavas B'Shuk V'Eina Makpedes, she'll start flirting with anybody, even a donkey driver in the marketplace, and she not at all doesn't have any discretion whatsoever.
Even a donkey, not a donkey driver.
Well, it has to be a donkey driver because they're not using her of bestiality. Whatever. I mean, it translates to the donkey, but it has to be. I mean, because she's flirting with anybody.
Why are they so concerned? Well, what did we do by Pesach? She brings 4 cups of wine.
That's a chov, and she goes to sleep, and her husband's there. And the Gemara is going to say, if it's 2 cups of wine, we just said it's no good. But we're about to learn if it's 2 cups of wine, it's good because her husband's going to get lucky. All right? Omer Rava. Lo shona ela she'ein ba'ila ima. Now, we have to break the bryce into 2 parts. The first 1 or 2, and the second 3 or 4. The first 1 or 2 is considered problematic if he's not there, but it's okay if he is there. 3 and 4 are never good except on because we do not want a woman to get inebriated and lose her inhibitions and act inappropriately. So, okay. So, Lo Shana Ela She'ein.
He shouldn't have any daughters. He's going to have a big problem.
Lo shana elishen baila ima. That only applies if her husband's not around. Avul baila ima. If her husband's there, leslan ba. We're not concerned. She could have 2 cups and her husband can get lucky. Now, coming back to Hannah. So why would Hannah refrain from drinking? Her husband was present. Her husband was there. And yet the pasuk seems to say she did not drink. So they were not at home. They lived in Ramah, and this all took place in Shiloh. When it comes to you're a guest somewhere, it's different. The Amarav Huna Menayan Achsane La Aser Bitashmi Shamita. Again, the wine is supposed to enable the woman to be more receptive to her husband. So if you're in someone else's house, you shouldn't be drinking wine because you're not allowed to have beer in someone else's house. Shenemar, the pasuk says, that in referring to Chana, they got up early in the morning and they davened. The Yashvu, and then they went back. The Avo El Beisam and came home to their own house. Haramasa in Ramah, and the Yedel Alaka Es Chana Ishto the Iskiren Reho. And then they had Bia at home, and as a result of that encounter, she got pregnant. Literally, God remembered her. Hashta. So here, hey, when they got home, yeah, they had Bia. Me'ikora lo. When they were not at home initially, they did not. And therefore, she didn't drink wine. I'll just note, this is actually brought in halacha, and my children customarily, when they visited us, would give me $1 and I'd make a kinyan. So they literally rented the room and it was theirs. Okay. Yeah, well, they're here for Pesach. I mean, they're a young couple. Give me a break. So now we have another story. Choma Debisa Hudabaya, Asel Kamila Rava, Amro Le, Pasuk Li Mizoine. So Choma, the widowed wife of Abaya, came to Rava, and she said, you're the head. Rava was the head of the Bezdin in Mechusa, and she said, I want you to award me my food allowance from my late husband's estate. Pasuk lo. So they did. Pasuk li chamra. She says, I also want a wine allowance. Omer lo, he said to her, Yadana ve benach money. I happen to know personally that Nachmani, which is another name for Abaya, the law have shase chamra. He never drank wine. Amrele chaye demar said, by the life of the Rav, it's an exclamation that she's going to make an important statement. Have mashkele b'shipurze ki hai. I give him a goblet of wine this big. And she took her hands and she's kind of a gesture. Now, if I can do this right, okay. You'll notice the talus slipped off when I raised my hand, okay? When she put her hands to show how large the cup of wine is, Agile Dera'a, she exposed the flesh of her entire arm, including the portion above the elbow, which must always be covered. And this is a euphemism for her. She was absolutely gorgeous. A light filled the Bezdin. Her skin glowed with light. Come Rava al-Beisei. So Rava got up and ran home to Va'al Bas Rav Chisda, and he importuned his wife, who was the daughter of Rav Chisda, let's go to bed. Okay, Amrle Bas Rav Chisda. So Mrs. Rava, the daughter of Rav Chisda, says to her husband, Man have adina bebedina. Who was the litigant in court today? In other words, he rarely, if ever, was interested in the afternoon, and now he's very interested. She says, who was in court today? And Allah, Chaima de Bisa Hude Abaye, Chama, the widow of Abaye. Nafka Abasra. So Mrs. Rava went and chased after Chaima, Machtale Bekufle de Shirda, and she belted her, she smacked her with the strap used to close up a chest. Okay, and she chased her ad afkala mechule mechuza, and she kept chanting. She ran after her, hitting her till Chaima ran out of the city of Mechusa. What? No, you have a comment?
No, I have this one problem in this thing. It appears that this woman was the widow of Abaye.
Right.
Right. But yet there's another commander that said Abaye had included rubber by 20 years. So how could rubber be there?
We don't, these stories are trying to teach us a lesson.
I know, but usually they don't go so far wrong.
What do you want? I can't answer you because there is no answer. Okay? So Amr Allah, and now this is interesting because elsewhere in the Gemara we learned that Abaye and Rav Shimon had a dispute as to what a chazaka was to be a katlanis. A katlanis is a woman whose husbands die unnaturally or early in the marriage. And there's an argument elsewhere in the Gemara. We had it, I think, in Yavamos, whether you may remarry a woman after two dead husbands or only after. What is the chazaka? Is it 2 or 3? And Abaya held over there, it's 3. And he married a widow who had 2 dead husbands already. And then Taka, he died. Okay,
Nothing
so maybe.
with divorce, right?
What? No, divorce doesn't count. She could divorce 100 times. But it's only dead husbands and it's only unnatural deaths. If you're 85 years old, you marry an 80-year-old widow and you die, that's not because you married her. It's because your time is up. But if you're 25 and you marry a 20-year-old widow and you die, people get concerned, maybe something about her.
Black widow.
The Black Widow, right. So in any event, so now the daughter of Rav Chisda challenges Chona, Katala lech talsa. You've already killed 3 husbands. The asas lemiktal acharina, and you're dressing provocatively to attract men. You want to kill a 4th? So that was okay. So that's the end of that story. And in terms of the anachronisms, I can't help you. The Bisahu, the Rav Yosef the Rava, the widow of Rav Yosef, Rava's son. So the story's moving along historically. Asai Lakaime the Rav Nechemia, Berei the Rav Yosef, she came to the Bezdin of Rav Nechemia, who was the son of Rav Yosef, who we learned was a Baki in these Inyanim several times earlier. Amrle, Pasakli Mizayne, I need a food allowance from my husband's estate. Pasakla gave it to her. Pasakle Chamra Pasakla, I need a wine allowance from my husband's estate, and he gave her the wine allowance also. And now, there's this issue of, do you give a wine allowance to women? And we learned if they're rugil, yes. If they're not rugil, no. He made a comment to the rest of the Bezdin. Amar lo yadana bahu b'vnei mechuza d'shasu chamra. I happen to know about the people who live in Mechuza that their women there drink wine. Okay, one more story. The Bisa Huda Rav Yosef Bered Rav Menashia Midville, the widowed wife of Rav Yosef, the son of Rav Menashia from Deville. He was the Rebbe. Asrei Lakami, the Rav Yosef came to Rav Yosef's Bezdin. Amrele Pasuk Le Mizane Pasuk Law said, "Give me food allowance," and they awarded it to her. Pasuk Le Chamra, give me a wine allowance. Pasuk Law, they gave it to her. Then she says, Pasuk Le Shirai, give me enough money to buy fancy silk clothing. So Omar Allah, so the Bezdin said to her, Shara Lama, why do you need fancy silk clothing? Amrale, she said to him, Lach ulachavrach ulachavrusoch, achavruroch. She said, I have to keep up appearances for you and your friends' friends. In other words, she is saying to the Bezdin in a global sense, and again, this would be brought in halacha, that a widow should be maintained in the standard to which she became accustomed when her husband was alive. Okay, because we had the minimum in the Mishnah, and it said this is a minimum for the poorest of people, but a more wealthy family has to do more. So she is claiming that she needs a clothing allowance because she always dressed in fancy clothing. Now the Mishnah went on, and there's an interesting, it says give her a soft mat, give her a hard mat, but it does not mention other bedding. So the Gemara is going to pick up on that. Okay, Nasna la mata umapots, etc. Mapots umacheles lamali dahavila. Why does she need both a soft mat and a hard mat? Rav Papa explained that they were if you can imagine a cot, and some cots have a leather or a canvas platform that's sewn on to the frame. Other cots have straps like the lounge chair that go across the frame. Now, the cot that's leather you could sleep on more comfortably than the cot that has a bunch of strings. Yeah. That will be rather uncomfortable. Rav Papa Basra the Nahage the Malapurya Bechavle. We're talking about areas where they use ropes to support the sleeping person on the bed frame. The machger law. So look, if you look at this word, it's a lot like gerba. It looks like bogeris that Rashi points out. She looks older than she really is because of the discomfort and the lack of sleep from sleeping on a bed that's just ropes. Okay, so what we have to do is give her the hard mat to put on the ropes and then the soft mat to be cushioning when she sleeps on it. Tana Rabbanan, we explain, Ein Neisnin Lo Karvikeses. We do not give her a pillow and a soft, fluffy mattress. Mishum Rabbi Neisen Amru. And they said in the name of Rabbi Neisen, Nosna Lo Karvikeses. You do give her a pillow and a mattress. So where, again, what's the difference that the Mishnah leaves it out? My time at Tanakama, what's his rationale for leaving it out? That I'm sorry, if the normal behavior there is to have pillows and mattresses, my time at the Tanakama, why would he leave it out? If they don't ever in a community ever have pillows and mattresses, my time at the Reb Nosson, why would Reb Nosson says you do give it to her? Look, we don't, it's not really a conflict. We need both examples. Kevan de urche di de v'lav urche di do. What if the custom where she came from differed from the custom where she moved to when she married him? In his community, you normally sleep with pillows and fluffy mattresses, but where she came from, you slept on a mat. So now he's kicked her out. Why should she be entitled to a pillow? That's the argument. Tanakama Savar, Amar Law, the husband says to her, Ki azilna shekilna lahu. When you walk out on me, I'm taking back the pillows. Ki sisna masina lahu bahadai. And when I come back on Friday night, I'll bring you the pillow. So Verebi Nasna, so that would be reasonable, except you can't carry on Shabbos. Reb Nassan Sover Amrele Zimnan Demis Rame Ben Hashmashos. She answers back, yeah, but what if you show up Friday night and it's after candle lighting, and we've already been Makabel Shabbos, and you can't carry the pillow? Then what are you going to do? You lo matzis maisei lahu. You won't be able to bring the pillows, and then you're gonna look at the bed, and you're gonna look at the floor, and you're gonna say chocolate lahu ladidi mignesli al ara. You're gonna take the bed because that's the best there is, and you're gonna make me sleep on the floor. So Reb Nosson says you have pillows and mattresses so that that problem is obviated. Now, Nosson lo kappa. So the Mishnah went on, you give her a head covering and you give her a belt and you buy her new shoes on a regular basis. Amalei Rav Papa Labaya, Rav Papa says to Abaya, turn the page. Hi, Tana, Sheilach. So it sounds a little ridiculous. You give her a hat and a belt, constantly buy her new shoes. Does this Tana walk around naked, but he always has shoes on? He doesn't mean it literally. He's criticizing the word of the Mishnah. Amalei, we're talking about Tana b'makom Horim Koi. We're talking about a rocky, mountainous area. Below Sagya, below Talsa, Zuge, Masane, that you need to replace your shoes at least 3 times a year. Otherwise, because they wear out from the rough terrain. Va'agav orcha kamash malon. And since he's going to tell you you have to buy her new shoes 3 times a year, he mentions in passing the nisvinahu nahala. You provide the new shoes just before each holiday. Ki hechi denahave lo simchas begava. So that she will have the joy of a new garment, new object, a new garment for Yom Tov, that she gets new shoes every Yom Tov.
Yeah, it doesn't really work out in terms of
the timing, but I understand.
Yeah.
But she can, if they're not worn out yet, she can hold them. He just provides them at that point in time. Okay. Or she wears the new shoes for Yom Tov, and then she has weekday shoes and Shabbos shoes.
has her own sugar milk.
She has her own, but it's just, I mean, I got a kick out of this when we learned the Mishnah, because like women go nuts and shoe shop and stuff. And in 2,000 years, that really hasn't changed. Apparently, women, it's a big deal, new shoes, even then. Okay. The Kalim Shel Chamishim Zuz. He also has to give her 50 zuz to buy new clothing, or he purchases the new clothing worth 50 zuz. Now, if you think about today, there's the Canadian dollar, the Hong Kong dollar, the Australian dollar, and they're all varying amounts. Okay, the Australian dollar is like 50 cents. So the Gemara is going to make note of the fact that zuzim also was a common term for coinage. Okay, so, and we can't be talking about US dollars, in other words, valuable zuzim, because we said this is what the poorest fellow has to provide. Okay. Omer Abaya Chamishim Zuze Pshite. This means 50 cheap zuzim, pashut zuzim, cheap zuzim. Okay, mamai, how do I know that? Midikatani, when are we talking about in the Mishnah? Ba'anish Israel, the poorest fellow in Israel. Avo b'mechubad, but if he's wealthier than that, hakol lefi kvodo, she gets what she was accustomed to based on the affluence of the family. The is al kedaita chamishim zuj mamish. If we're talking about 50 silver zuzim from, okay, Ani mechamishim zuz monole. Where is a poor fellow going to come up with 50 silver zuzim? Elashmami na chamishim zuze pshite. So we see from this that we have to be talking about cheap base metal coins that were also called zuzim. He does not replace her clothing in the summertime, okay? But he gives her new clothing in the winter, and presumably they're wool and they wear out a little bit, so they're not as thick, so she can wear them in the summertime. And then the Mishnah went on, and we had this earlier, that she got to keep the worn out clothing forever and ever. It became tzon barzel. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, Mutter Meiser Mizainos. We have the following new din. If she does not use up the food he provides, or the money, the food allowance, then the balance left over, or the leftover food in the not refrigerator, go back to him. But the worn out leftover clothing, last season's clothing, the woman can keep. So what is a woman going to do with no longer stylish last year's clothing? What value do they have? Omer Rachva suggests Shemis Kasa Vehem B'Meinidasa. She can wear them when she's in Nida, so that her newer clothing doesn't get stained. Kadesh Lo Tagarne Al Baila. Because if she's walking around in stained clothing, she will be unpleasant in her husband's eyes. Amar Abaya Naktinan. So we make a halacha as follows. Meiser B'la'os Almana Liyorshav. That since a widow, number one, she may be already past menopause, but number two, she doesn't have any man to impress. She doesn't have to look gorgeous for her husband. So she doesn't have need for used clothing. So the used clothing remain part of the estate, and the children can do what they wish with them. Hasam, who only a married woman can use the used clothing when she's needed. The law tehagane ba'ape, so that she doesn't look disgusting to her husband. Hacha, but now if she's a widow, nisgane, it's preferable that she doesn't look attractive so that she won't get involved illicitly with some other man. Okay. Then we had that the husband has to give her 1 silver coin as her personal allowance. Nosnan lo mea kesef. Now, and then we had the next clause. The Gemara has this annoying habit of talking about the phrase that's left out of the between the 2 dots. So the next thing was that they eat together on Friday night. My Ocheles, what does it mean? They eat together on Friday night. Reb Nachman Aimer Ocheles Mamish, that he comes and they have a Shabbos Seuda together. Rav Ashi Omer Tashmish, it's a euphemism for they sleep together on Friday night. That's her right, even though they're having a katata. Tanan, we have a Mishnah that says, our Mishnah, he eats together with her on Friday night. That's fine if you say the word literally means eating. That's why it says they eat together. But according to the opinion that it means really they have intimacy together, why does the